Thanks for joining us today. We've got a special episode with a special guest about some very important things going on in veterinary medicine in Kentucky. Today we're going to go over some current event issues with Dr. Phil Prater, who recently retired from Morehead State University. Dr. Prater has been in private practice, academia, and is active throughout the state of Kentucky guiding veterinarians. I met Dr. Prater when I went through technician school, and he has been a friend and mentor ever since. He has guided many veterinarians to vet school and provided those vets with well-educated technicians. I'm extremely grateful to have him on my podcast today. This is actually snippets of our full interview with Dr. Prater, which we will be airing later in the season. That interview is much more in-depth as Dr. P tells us about his life and discusses vet medicine in my mini-series, Perspectives of Veterinary Vet Medicine. Today, these snippets are part of the conversation which I think needed to get out for discussion in the public earlier because of the importance of these points. The first thing I do is talk with Dr. Prater about the veterinary shortage. As I have mentioned, I don't think we have a shortage so much as vets are not distributed properly. They aren't distributed properly because in many areas the business environment does not make it possible to have the proper support staff and structure that allows veterinarians to have sustainable practice. There are other issues than just not enough of us at play that need to be addressed. Dr. Prater and I both agree a vet school in Kentucky would not be helpful for many reasons. Please listen to this, and if we have convinced you that adding a vet school to Kentucky will not fix the veterinary shortage, please contact your Kentucky senators and representatives and tell them that a vet school will not help this situation. In the links on this podcast, I have provided websites for you to look up your specific state representatives so you can contact them. One of the big things in vet medicine is a vet shortage. I've almost been leaning that towards trying to recategorize how people think, and I think it's more a lack of people using veterinarians appropriately and that relationship between vet and client and what their expectations are. And recently, I think it's Murray State has it wants to make a vet school. I talked about that in my episode of another episode of the podcast, To Vet School or Not. And I pretty much came and said, I don't think this is a good idea. I did send that to my senators and representatives. Hopefully they will hear it. But I know you've got some thoughts and have been down in Frankfurt some. What can you tell us about what's going on with this? Is it a good idea or not?
Well, for the past 26 years at MSU, most of my veterinary colleagues were finding new ways to, I don't know, treat whatever, ketoacidosis. I was trying to find ways to get kids into vet school.
Yeah.
I don't know that I was any more successful than anybody else, but it certainly put veterinary education.
Interject real quick. Thank you for getting us into vet school.
Well, I want to tell you something. You got your own self into vet school. You worked hard. You had to take the classes. I wanted to be there to encourage. I wanted to be there for the shoulder to cry on or the high five or have to come to Jesus meeting that's, look, maybe you need to take another road or whatever it may be. Doing pre-vet advising was the greatest joy I would have. Also, some of the toughest things I did at MSU. So, but I felt like I became fairly knowledgeable in vet schools, how they work, what it takes to get in.
Yeah.
And from pretty much day one, along with 3 other primary pre-vet advisors in our state, Dr. Gordon Jones down at Western Kentucky, Dr. Terry Cannerty at Murray, and myself and Dr. Dwyer at UK, we have seen firsthand the incredibly good situation that we have with contracted spaces.
Yeah.
So there's no vet school in Kentucky. And so for 70 years, we've had these contractual agreements between our state and Auburn and Tuskegee did it a few years at Ohio State, but primarily Auburn and Tuskegee.
Yeah.
They're both in Alabama. What those contracts do is they say, okay, we're going to take some tax money from the state of Kentucky. We're going to set it aside,
Yeah.
and our students can go to Auburn and Tuskegee for in-state tuition.
Yeah.
Now, Auburn and Tuskegee still charge us the full boat out of state,
Yeah.
but the tax money picks up the out of state portion, the balance of that. So the student pays in state, and the balance is left over is picked up by the state of Kentucky.
Yeah.
So this is a wonderful thing. Out of state tuition is a massive amount of money. It's a huge chunk of money, huge savings for our students to be able to go down there. Why do we want to do that? Well, we got med schools. We got 2 med schools, 2 dental schools, 2 law schools, whatever, pharmacies. We got all this stuff. Why? And guess what? If you're a Kentucky resident, you go for in-state tuition.
Yeah.
So we're providing that for all these other professions, but yet we can't provide it for veterinarians. We don't have a vet school. So that contract is basically just leveling the playing field
Yeah.
between veterinary profession and all the other professional degree programs we have.
Yeah.
Now, and we've had there's been over 1,000 veterinarians from that contract, and they come back to Kentucky at a very high rate.
Yeah.
Right now, almost a little shy of 60% of all the students that graduate from Auburn that are Kentucky residents come right back to our state. They come back immediately.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then about 5 to 8 years, it's up to about 75%.
Oh,
so
that's
three-quarters of the students,
yeah.
because they may want to go to Atlanta and work and make a bunch of money.
Yeah.
And then come back to Ballard County.
Yeah.
So
as I said in the other episode, everyone likes coming home to mom's cooking.
Yeah, right. So it's unprecedented. There are contracted spaces out there, but states may have 5 spots here or 2 spots here or 8 here and 1 here. I mean, they're little numbers of contracts.
Yeah.
41 spots. Unprecedented how many students we get. We get more students educated at Auburn, Alabama than Alabama residents do. Between Tuskegee and Auburn, we get more Kentucky kids educated in Auburn and Tuskegee than Alabama residents do.
Yeah.
The bill to keep Auburn open, just recently I spoke with Dean Calvin Johnson. I said, so what's your annual budget? He said $100 million.
Yeah.
$100 million a year to keep that thing going. They got 125 faculty, board certified, specialty folks teaching the world-class education.
Yeah.
World-class. And Tuskegee, world-class.
Mm-hmm.
They don't get the press, but I'm telling you, you want a good practitioner, get a Tuskegee grad.
There's 2 good ones right there.
They're incredible. Okay. They're incredible. So that's the situation we've had. We also currently have, because of new vet schools coming on, South Carolina has been sending tremendous numbers of kids. They're kind of the second most sending to Georgia. Well, South Carolina, Clemson's going to build a vet school. Now Georgia's going, look, we got a bunch of open seats. You want some Kentucky kids to come down? Oh. World-class education.
Yeah.
World-class facility.
Yeah.
$300-400 million type facilities. And so we could have probably 10 spots. LMU would love to have some Kentucky contracts. I mean, they got a lot of Kentucky students, but they would love to have some contract. We could easily have, we got 41 now, 50 would be absolutely no problem. Mm-hmm. We might even get as many as 60 kids on contracted spaces.
Yeah.
And right now, the contracted spaces for 41 people cost the state of Kentucky $5.6 million a year. Alabama residents pay $30 million a year.
Oh, gosh.
To keep open.
Yeah.
6 times more than what Kentucky residents pay. I'm very careful not to mention those figures to Alabama people. They would be going, no, we're getting screwed here.
Yeah, we're moving to Kentucky.
I'm serious.
Yeah.
I'm serious. That is how this is. And so We have fought to keep these contracts because we think that Kentucky, the sons and daughters of Kentucky, go get a world-class education,
Mm-hmm.
world-class facility, world-class instructors,
Yeah.
not just the best in the United States. Some of these guys, hey, Dwight Wolf,
Yeah.
Bobby Lee Carson,
Yeah.
Chance Armstrong, world class.
Oh goodness. Bring Chance graduated with me. So
Yeah, world class veterinarians.
he was
Write the
good.
books. They
Yeah.
write books.
Yeah.
We get all that for $5.6 million a year.
Yeah.
The question then is, well, Kentucky's this, thoroughbred capital of the world, eighth largest beef cattle producing state in the United States.
Yeah.
Why don't we have a vet school? We don't have a vet school because we do. We have a vet school already. It's 8 hours south in Auburn, Alabama.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you go to vet school, you don't need to be running home every weekend anyway. You're
Yeah.
going to be there. You need to study. Go
Yeah.
down there, buy your trailer, study, and then you come back home 4 years.
Yeah.
The reason that's never really taken much of a hold is there's been no money to build it.
Yeah.
So, of course, a number of years ago, a veterinary school was developed in the Los Angeles area called Western Veterinary College, and
Mm-hmm.
it was the first one to have a distributive model, which means you take your first 3 years and mostly didactic training, maybe some clinical labs, but then you're essentially farmed out your fourth year. Your senior year, you're farmed out to different practices, and so you learn your hands-on clinical practical skills
Yeah.
out in practice. And now that, because that was established and the precedent was set, then there was about 5 more that came online. Lincoln Memorial, there's one at the Long Island University, there's Midwestern and Texas Tech. They're all distributed models. I work for a distributed model school. The advantages, if you are a really good student,
Mm-hmm.
self-motivated,
Yeah.
got pretty intelligent, work hard, jump in, and you go to and the second part of the equation is, and you go to a practice that has a person, a veterinarian that's interested in teaching
Mm-hmm.
and mentoring and spending time with you to make sure you're trained properly, then that can be a very good experience.
Yes.
The problem is that there are some inconsistencies between those practices, and there are inconsistencies with students. So
Mm-hmm.
if you have an unmotivated student who does not have a great work ethic, or maybe is lacking in some
Self-motivation.
clinical skills or clinical thought processes, maybe has not really been taught well to have critical thinking processes, and you throw them into a practice where the practice is just let's go, or you these animals are too expensive, you go stand on the wall and observe. That's not a good situation.
Yeah.
Okay, that's not a good situation. So there's some inconsistencies that are more poignant in a distributive model than with the traditional teaching hospital, which is what you and I had.
Yeah.
Now, are there problems with the traditional teaching hospital? Yeah, there are. One of them is, unless the school is taking steps to correct this, you kind of see all the weird stuff because it's a
Yeah.
referral hospital. You're not seeing the routine kinds of things. You're just seeing all the out and left field stuff. So
Zebras.
that's a little bit of an issue. And you are getting all the state of the art. I mean, you're bombing tumors with, lasers and stuff in a big room, but nobody can afford that where you're from. And, how do you treat it just out in rural America?
Yeah.
So I think some of the practical things that you need to really kind of be learning may not get hit with that very well until you're actually out in practice. Both have advantages and disadvantages. And I'm not here to say anything negative about either one of them. The question then is, why doesn't Kentucky have a vet school? And up to this point, we've not needed it.
Yeah.
We still don't need it, but there's been no real funding.
Yeah.
So something, some pot of money has become available for certain counties in
Mm-hmm.
our state, probably economic development type stuff. I'm sure it's all tax money. I think it's federal, maybe federal tax money,
Yeah.
that the state has earmarked. And there's the counties that Murray State are in are counties that are available for this. And one of the things they want to do is they want to build a vet school. They wanted to build a vet school for 50 years at Murray, but just no funding or no interest. And now they have the money.
Yeah.
The interest is another subject. There is interest from lots of people down in the western part of Kentucky. There's a lot of interest from county governments, and there's a lot of interest from the administration at Murray State. But the glaring lack of interest for this is from the veterinary community.
Yeah.
Nobody's interested in this
Yeah.
because they know what we have.
Yeah.
See, they understand what we have.
Yeah.
They understand the gem, the jewel
Yeah.
that we have in place in veterinary medical education in the state. None of these
How,
other people do. All they see is, they're proud Kentucky. Well, hey, I'm a proud Kentucky. I was born and raised here. Nobody, there's no prouder Kentucky in the world than Phil Prater.
yeah.
But what I'm telling you is I'm not willing to trade just to have pride in having a vet school within the borders of our state. I'm not willing to trade a world-class education, world-class facility, world-class instructors for that.
Yeah.
Not willing to do that.
Yeah.
So in my 2 days, solid days at Frankfurt, talking with different legislators, we've kind of gone as a KVMA group to meet individually and to speak to the House of Representatives Ag Committee, try to make sure they understood that this is going to be detrimental to the education of our students. Murray wants to build a distributed model vet school. Their funding is incredibly low.
Yeah.
I mean, if you wanted to build in Auburn, that's a $400 million facility.
Yeah.
And with 125 faculty, board certified, DVM, PhD, best in the world faculty. But it's got a teaching hospital.
Yeah.
If you want, even if you wanted to do a Lincoln Memorial distributive, it's still, I mean, they have 46 full-time faculty
Mm-hmm.
and a bunch of part-time. That doesn't include the affiliates.
Yeah.
That doesn't include you.
Yeah.
I know you've been an affiliate for them. That doesn't include you. And Murray wants to do this, and their annual budget's like 15 million,
Yeah.
which only covers salaries and utilities and some supplies.
Yeah.
No new equipment. If you wanted a piece of new equipment, that's above and beyond.
Yeah.
Murray thinks they can build a vet school for $90 million and $4 million a year budget, or six or something. It's kind of all that target moves around a little bit.
Yeah.
But they think they can budget it for about half, and they're going to have 12 new faculty
Okay.
for 70 students. And
Okay.
it's so underwhelming
Yeah.
that it's not well thought through.
Yeah.
There are some big holes in it.
But they are still
Yeah.
trying to do this. Is
Oh, 100%. Yeah,
okay.
100%. So
Um,
what happened day before yesterday, Wednesday, was they passed a bill. There'd been a law in the state of Kentucky. I'm not sure when this was passed, a number of years ago, but there was a law in the state of Kentucky that said that any new professional or doctorate degree could only be established at a land grant, meaning UK or U of L or I guess K-State's a land grant. They're the only schools that could establish a new doctoral type program. Well, they amended that, and one of the reasons that nobody fought it too hard from an academic standpoint is because some of these other schools, they want that amendment too. They called it a carve out, so they're going to carve out this little piece of the law
Yeah.
to allow Murray to build a vet school. Well, EKU wants to build osteopathic school, so they weren't going to fight them. And Western wants to build something. I don't know what.
Yeah.
Um, so they had the votes
Yeah.
to pass that. I think that, and they did, out of committee. Now they got to have the whole
They've got more votes to come.
representatives, to do. They may pass that. Doesn't mean they're going to build the school. Doesn't mean they're going to get funded. Nothing like that. There were some definite no votes. There were some passes. People would say, "Well, I'm just going to pass on this." There were, of course, a lot of yes votes, mostly from Western Kentucky folks.
Yeah.
The thing that I would say maybe is a little moral victory for those opposed to it was that even the people that voted yes said, we're not really sure about this. We're
Okay.
going to vote yes so that we can kind of keep it
Investigate.
rolling a little bit and so we can learn more about it and stuff. We're going to go ahead and vote this through, but we're having some concerns. And from my understanding yesterday of some other folks, some veterinarians and KVMA representatives that went up yesterday, there's now becoming some deeper concerns,
Good.
which should be. You should have, if you're a veterinarian, you should have some extremely deep concerns about this. The politicians still say the best thing we can do, if our profession in general disagrees with them building a veterinary school, you need to individually call your state reps and your senators and say, look, this is a bad idea. Please don't vote for this.
Yeah.
They said this is still the best way
Okay.
to get this thing done. I think they're not looking at the comparison between what we have and what we will have.
Yeah.
If we build this thing at Murray, then Auburn contracts things I think will eventually go away,
Yeah.
either from Auburn's standpoint or our standpoint.
That was my concern.
Auburn's going to say, your 41 spots, there's 41 students in our at-large pool that will fill those
In a
like
second.
that.
Yeah.
And honestly, those 41 kids probably have higher GPAs, probably have more experience, and probably are better students than your Kentucky kids.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that to be derogatory. I'm telling you that is a fact.
Yeah.
When you compare at-large students with the Kentucky group, they outperform us.
Yeah. Yeah.
We don't, hey, Auburn doesn't need us.
Yeah.
They don't need us.
I think we need them more than they need us.
Oh, yes, 100%.
So that's something I've written to a few senators, representatives, told them my view. But if you're a vet out there in Kentucky, let them know, like Dr. Prater said. But if you're one of a client, not just my clients, but any client, why would you as a client maybe want to write your senators, your representatives and say, hey, I agree with not getting a vet school in Kentucky. How could this affect care of animals down at a local level?
Sure. For me, having been in education for a while, it's really mostly about quality. It's the quality of the education. It's quality of instructor. You're not going to get that with $90 million and 12 new faculty.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. So you're going to be dealing with students who are not as well trained as what we're getting now, and therefore the quality of the medicine that's going to be done is I think going to have an obvious downturn.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're not going to get the quality of student that and the quality of veterinarian, eventually the quality of veterinarian that you're going to get. In fact, and it's really sad. I mean, one of the saddest parts of any of the testimony on Wednesday was, basically representatives from Murray going, hey, our vet school is going to be a real bargain.
Mm.
We're going to be a real bargain. And what they're really saying is it's going to be second rate.
Yeah. I'd rather not be the bargain.
It's a bargain because it's going to be second rate because we're not going to put much into this.
Yeah.
The reason we can maybe keep tuition down and stuff is because we're not going to invest much into this. You don't invest anything, that's you're going to get what you pay for.
Yeah.
And
I'd rather
going to be
the profession
issue.
not become the bargain profession.
Right. Well, I think that's where we're headed if that goes through.
Yeah.
I'll just make this comment because I've been around and looked at political situations before. I wasn't necessarily surprised, but I guess when it's right in your face, it's a little more glaring. But there are people that are making decisions about our profession, Nathan,
Hmm.
that are not veterinarians, they're politicians,
Yeah.
but yet they wield power and they wield money.
Yeah.
So it bothers me a lot that the general veterinary profession was never really brought into this conversation. It was just, oh, we got money, we
Let's
got Murray, let's build it.
grow it. Yeah. Yeah. So any vets listening, please email, call, letter, whatever you want to your representatives. Any clients that agree with what we're saying, do the same thing, please. I will try to get some links so people can reach out and contact and such. In this next section, we're talking about student debt and how student debt has increased dramatically over the years. With higher student debt and higher cost of living, many veterinarians can't stay in rural areas, and that is primarily where the so-called veterinary shortages are. So while there's a shortage of veterinarians there, these vets who aren't feeling appreciated and aren't having a good relationship with their clients and in the area are going to places where they can get higher paid positions to pay off their student debt. So we talk about how this has come to pass, where veterinarians are almost being forced away from certain areas where practices just aren't sustainable, and how maybe clients and producers could take actions to bring those veterinarians back.
This is getting to be a real issue. You know,
Mm.
the 900-pound gorilla in the room is student debt. We
Yeah,
all know that. We know that it's burdensome. It affects our attitude.
yeah.
It affects maybe sometimes how we practice. And
I
I would hope, God forbid, and I don't think this really occurs to any great extent.
hmm
But I'm going to tell you, there's no way you can have a $300,000 loan and not feel pressure to do things in your practice the way you practice that when that's hanging on your head all the time.
yeah. It's hard working in a little bit more rural area. I
Yeah.
sometimes question there is the gold standard, which obviously makes me more money,
Right.
but is not always realistic for some of the people
Yeah.
that are my clients, which,
You're not in Westchester County outside of Philadelphia
yeah,
where everybody just says, yeah, sure. Here's the credit card, do whatever. I mean, you're not in that situation. I wasn't in, and when I went back to practice in Paris, I didn't have big thoroughbred clients and stuff. I did a mixed animal practice. You know, I
yeah,
did small animal, I did a lot of cattle work,
yeah,
probably, you know, which was kind of surprising to me that I really took off and did a lot of cattle work, and that's really been my mainstay for the last half of my career. But yeah, you know, and I haven't really had a chance to talk to a lot of vet school faculty,
mm-hmm,
but I currently do some consulting with one of the vet schools that have a distributive model where they're having kids go out and they
yeah,
kind of get their senior year hands-on training with with people like you,
yeah, yeah,
and you've had some students that I've had. And sometimes when I read in their reflection, so they're required to reflect every week and
yeah,
talk about cases, and you know, they have to write soaps and all those kind of things. They turn them into me. I kind of grade them,
yeah,
but some of the things I'm seeing in there, you know, and it's not just at this school; it's in all of them. There is such a emphasis on you can only do it this way, this optimal way,
yes,
and or euthanize them.
yeah,
And I'm going, wow, really? I mean,
uh,
because in my practice, I'm sure as in your rural practice,
yeah,
we had plan A, We had Plan B.
I kept going through
We,
the alphabet usually.
yeah, we
Um,
go down to about D, and
I,
then go, well, okay, if you can't do that, maybe we'll have to put the animal down. But I always gave people options. I'm going, look, let's,
yeah,
we got a little chance here.
I would
And
add one other thing to your specialist. That's an answer I get a lot. We want to
yeah,
send it to a specialist now.
right.
And I'm like, they've already expressed they don't want to or can't afford it. So what do you do
That's
now?
right.
And
That's right.
it's fun watching the students figure that out,
Hmm.
especially when it's the first time they've been put in that situation. Like, what do you mean? We were told to give them this treatment.
Yeah,
And I'm like, well, you have to come up with something else now.
that's right. That's right.
And and then
It's
they
not
get
just,
really,
you can't float it off to a, you can't float it off. Maybe if you're in downtown Cincinnati, you can, and the
yeah,
specialist is 3 blocks over, maybe.
yeah,
But if you're in, if you're in West Liberty, Kentucky, and there's not a specialist for 200 miles, well, you're gonna have to. And I kind of thought about this when you and I talked earlier about doing this.
hmm
I kind of thought about some things that I saw in my mentors, and
yeah,
and then kind of instilled in my excuse me, in myself a little bit, as opposed to what maybe we're seeing today.
yeah, yeah,
But hey, the technology is incredible today.
yes,
The clinical pathology things that you can do is incredibly advanced. I think intellectually, veterinarians probably are. Well, I'm not going to throw you in, but I'll throw me in. I mean, there's a lot of vets that are way smarter than I am. But here's the deal. Here's what I see that's lacking. When you have all the tools and you have all the blood work and you have all the toys and all the diagnostics and stuff like that, then everything just gets to be an algorithm.
yes,
You plug it in and it comes out hyperthyroidism,
hmm
or you run 16 things on blood work and it's Cushing's, or whatever. I saw veterinarians who didn't have all that stuff,
yeah,
and I will tell you what they had though. They were creative.
hmm
They were the most creative people. And if creativity is a part of intelligence, which I would hope it would be,
yeah, yeah,
they were the most intelligent people I ever saw.
yeah,
They didn't have all this help. They didn't have Doc Copeland I worked for. He didn't have 14 university studies on the best route approach to the carpal
yeah.
joint.
He
He
figured
did
out
it.
how to do it.
He just figured it out.
Yeah,
Yeah. They didn't have all the stuff. They had little bottles sometimes of stuff that they would mix up that
yeah,
worked and slap their own label on it. And you
yeah.
know what? It worked. It was
It worked.
good. It was safe. It was effective because they didn't have all this. I
I,
didn't have. I mean, I didn't have Banamine. Like
yeah.
Yeah, right.
How do you? I don't know how to think without Banamine.
Yeah, right. Well, guess what? There were steroids.
Yeah.
You
Well,
did
yeah,
that.
that's what when we're going back to the students, not every time, but a lot of the times we get to, okay, what do you do now? They don't, this is not an option for them. You've got to come up with something. And they're like, I don't know, I don't know. And then I'm like, well, let's give it steroids. And everyone from school freaks out. And I'm
Oh
like,
yeah,
well,
yeah,
I'm not going to not do something. And, I talk
right.
to the clients about risk and benefits and stuff.
I'm sure there's an aspect to this that where when you have all these tools that can you provide, are we providing better medical care today
Hmm.
than we did 50 years ago? Well, yeah, probably. But just kind of my perspective as a veterinarian, boy, we've lost some creative people. They
I,
were just so incredibly
yeah,
creative and pioneering, and just they didn't know all the answers, but they were game. They
yeah,
had scrotal circumference, and
yes,
they were going, well, you know what? And the owners understood that. I mean, that's another problem
yeah.
is you don't necessarily have an owner that understands that today.
I feel
So,
like we've
you know,
lost that relationship that
yeah,
gives us the confidence to say, I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm going to step in and do whatever I can.
Yeah,
Just trust me.
right,
We may not
right.
win, but I don't have other options.
That's right. And here's the price if it doesn't work.
Uh,
I
yes,
have to cover my costs and stuff, but I just want to do this. It's
yes,
just this internal gut feeling of, by golly, I'm going to get in there and try to do this. And if it goes great, wonderful. And if it doesn't go great, we've learned something and you haven't lost a bunch of money. And I'm sorry your animal didn't make it, but we're going to make it anyway.
yeah, yeah.
It wasn't like it was going to get better on its own. So give
I've
me a
told
shot.
I've told people a lot. I've learned something for the next one, and this
Yeah, you
this
betcha.
might help someone else. And I
Betcha.
do have clients that are still responsive, and they enjoy seeing the students work on things. But it's as an owner, it's always in the back of my mind, how far can I push that and stuff.
Right. Yeah, I'm concerned that I'm happy that students today are learning all these wonderful
Hmm.
things in medicine and surgery and different ways of doing things. I love all that.
Yeah,
But I fear that because of that, because it doesn't become a tool, it becomes a crutch.
yeah. It's an
And it,
algorithm, like you said. Yeah,
yeah. And now, well, I can't be creative
yeah.
because my list of all these things over here are telling me to go this way. I don't think that's it, but I don't really want to go the other way.
Yeah. And to me, that's the fun part of vet medicine is
Yeah.
there's freedom to try to figure out
Right.
what's wrong, and that's the fun part. I mean,
Right.
yeah, we're supposed to give vaccines. That's an algorithm you give it, whatever, at the normal puppy shots, but I can teach my tech to do that. I want to figure out the other stuff.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
because I feel like everyone's screaming, there's no large animal vets. But I don't see as many people wanting a professional relationship with their vet. I feel like vets are almost being looked at as, it's transactional. We're going down to Walmart to pick up our whatever from the vet, Vet Mart or something. I had someone call the other day. They had 7 sick horses and they wanted to pick up antibiotics. And then they followed that without my tech being able to schedule an appointment. They said, but we don't want to get the vet involved. Another client, a cattle client, they hadn't used a vet in 14 years and were really surprised when we could not come out to see their cow. That, I don't know. I'm trying, as we spoke, I'm trying to let God guide me where I go. And that seems to be small animals.
Sure.
Even though I resist it, I went out, sutured up a horse yesterday. I said, no, it's just right. They brought it down to the clinic, and I told the lady, I've got a lot in the clinic going on, but I just needed to walk out here to suture up the horse. I feel better now. Even though I started out 100% horses and ambulatory, I'm 70% small
Sure.
animal now. So you've seen and taught a lot of vets. I have a feeling this is going on everywhere. But can you give some insight into maybe what you're seeing with clients and vets and how we're reacting? Because whenever I talk about it, I know I'm seeing my view, not other parts of the state and stuff like that.
Well, I want to say something really quick before I forget. One of the reasons that Murray wants to build the vet school is because they think they can make it a large animal vet school. Like
Mm,
they're going to just pump out large animal veterinarians, which is not possible because they have to be accredited through the American Veterinary Medical Association. You have to teach a broad spectrum species. You specialize in species after you graduate from vet school, not in vet school.
yeah,
Uh, I wanted to do just horse work. You might have too. We had to still take small animal surgery, medicine, all those kind of things. And the other fallacy is that having a vet school cures
mm,
your food animal vet shortage. It does not. It's been in fact shown to do just about the opposite. University of Tennessee was built in Knoxville in the 70s to combat shortages of food animal veterinarians.
yeah,
Go down there today, and the food animal section is probably the least, the least busy.
yeah,
Um, You cannot tell a student when they're going across the stage and they get their diploma, there's nobody standing on the other side going, okay, you're going to Fleming County and you're going to do large animal medicine.
Yeah.
Now, there are incentive programs postgraduate. There are loan repayment programs where somebody might want to go, okay, I've got this $150,000 debt. If I go to a rural practice, they're going to start to pay a big chunk of that debt. So we have some things like that. There is one through the USDA already. Actually, Kentucky is developing one as we speak. Instead of spending $90 million on a vet school, we've proposed to spend maybe a couple of $1 million a year, $3 million a year to pay off student loans for 5 students. Then we do that for 5 years before we ask for more money. And then, so now you have 25 new veterinarians in the market for rural practice jobs. They have to go to rural America. They have to go to underserved areas. So you do that, but you don't do that on the front end. You do that once they've graduated and you give them incentives. That's how the medical profession does it. It's how the teaching profession does it to get them to go into rural America. So I think it's a fallacy. If you do hear anybody go, well, they're going to build a vet school in Murray, it's going to put out a bunch of large animal vets. There's no guarantee of that. There's no guarantee they have to stay in Kentucky or go into rural practice. When I graduated, my very first practice, we saw small animal patients from 8 to 9 in the morning. We got in a truck with a buoy kit and we went all day. We vaccinated calves, we dewormed calves, we worked cattle, we saw sick horses, we did all that stuff. We came home, we came back to the clinic, we got lunch, we went back out at 1, ran farm calls. We got back in about 4:30. We saw small animals from 4:30 to 5:30 and we went home. Unless there was an emergency.
Yeah.
Okay. That's how the practice was.
Yeah.
You can't find that anymore. That doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah.
So some things that happened over the last 40 years of veterinary medicine, I've been in it, over-the-counter drugs became very common.
Yeah.
When I was first out, you had to go to the vet and buy tetracycline, sulfoboluses, whatever. You went to the vet, not the feed store. Some of the feed stores may have vaccine, but you knew it was cut rate and you knew it didn't work very well. And the only way to get quality vaccine was through the vet.
Yeah.
So all the transactions for that were through the vet. So therefore, the client-patient relation was established actually much better back then.
Yeah.
And I don't even think we knew what nobody even talked about VCPR, what it meant. Then, when all that started to happen, the other thing that occurred, of course, was other entities outside of veterinary medicine got involved in training producers to do things like, they might want to train them to ultrasound. They might want to certainly train them in beef quality assurance, vaccinating and deworming and stuff like that. So that all happened. And I don't know if we allowed that to happen. I don't know if it was just drug companies and places like that were just bigger than we were and we didn't have a stronger voice. I don't really know. All I know is the outcome was I stopped going out and vaccinating calves and deworming cattle.
Yeah.
And I stopped doing a lot of stuff. But there were some things that I didn't stop doing, like pregnancy examinations and breeding soundness evaluations, things I really enjoyed doing, things that I had a little expertise in.
Yeah.
So I tried to keep my hand on the pulse of the agricultural community doing those things. By the time I left practice to come to Morehead State, I was fully aware that I wasn't probably going to go back out and vaccinate calves on somebody's farm.
Yeah.
Now they can go to the store and buy the same quality vaccine that you and I have. They can buy the same quality dewormer that you and I have for a cheaper price. I was not going to compete with Southern States or Tractor Supply. So I actually stopped carrying a lot of medications.
Yeah.
I just tell them, look, you go buy your own dewormer, you go buy your own vaccine. Here's the vaccine you need. I'm going to charge you by the hour.
Yeah.
And that was also a big change. Most of the work that we had done as veterinarians before were charging by the head, and we were bumping up the price of medications. So if we sold you a bottle of oxytetracycline, we were probably putting a pretty hefty increase on that. But
Yeah.
that was just to cover all the other things we're doing.
Yeah.
One of the good things younger vets are doing is they've gotten away from that. They're not putting increasing on medications.
Trying
They're
to.
increasing their service charges,
Yeah.
and they're going, okay, we're going to do it for 100, 150 an hour, and that way, if you're ready when we get there, man, you
We'll get
won't
it
owe me
out.
hardly anything. We'll
Yeah.
get in and out, and boom, be done. But if you're not, then I'm just going to hit the clock, and I'll sit there till you're ready, and I'll
Yeah.
at $150 an hour.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's changed some. So you're right. The question that we've all been asking, and really it's been asked for all the 26 years I've been in veterinary medicine at Morehead State, and still everybody's been asking, okay, we don't have enough large animal practitioners in rural America. What's veterinary medicine going to do about that? What are y'all going to do about that?
Yeah.
We need more vet schools. We need more whatever. What's veterinary medicine doing about that? Who asked that question? Cattlemen's Association asked it. Farm Bureau asked it. Kentucky Department of Agriculture. What is veterinary medicine going to do about this situation? I think it's the wrong question. They're not asking the right question. The question is, ag community, what are you going to do about supporting that veterinarian so that they can make a living wage
Hmm.
and come out and work in rural America?
Yeah.
What are you guys going to do about it? Are you going to get the extension agent to come out and ultrasound your cows for free and
Mm.
only call the vet when it's the dire emergency once every 5 years? Well, they're not going to come out.
At midnight.
If, yeah. And if all you do is that, then they won't stay there.
Yeah.
After a few years of being neglected by the farming community, then they're going to look at that job up in Louisville that's 410s and making 160 grand a year. They're going to go up there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we've been asking the wrong question. We've spent 2 years, there's been a 2 year, 18 months or so project between the Kentucky Department of Agriculture, the Kentucky Veterinary Medical Association, the Kentucky Board of Veterinary Examiners. Been an 18-month project about trying to determine what's going on with this veterinary shortage
Uh-huh.
and how to address it. Now, one of the positive things that's come out of this is a veterinary loan repayment program. I think that's really good. They've
Yeah.
also been discussing ways of getting in the high schools and getting in the
Spread over
our
the.
younger kids, getting them excited about veterinary medicine and
Yeah.
making sure that they're academically on track. And so there are some good things that came out of that. Still, they didn't ask the right question. you know Now what you really need to do is spend about 2 years, 18 months, whatever, educating producers.
Mm-hmm.
Here's how you need to use your veterinarian. I've given up on the fact that I'm going to go vaccinate cow. I'm
Yeah.
not going to.
Yeah.
No, I'm not going to go out and squirt dewormer down their back.
Yeah.
But why not call me out, especially now that you need either a VFD for your antibiotics in your feed,
Mm-hmm.
or if you need a prescription, you have to have a veterinary client patient relationship. Instead of just me coming out and driving around your farm, why don't you have me come out and preg check your cows?
Yeah.
Because if I find one open one, I've saved you $500.
Yeah.
I've saved you $500 if I find one open cow. What if I come out and I do that, and to keep the VCPR going, I need to come out a couple times a year. Why don't you have me out in the fall to preg check your cows?
Yeah.
Why don't you have me back in the spring to do breeding soundness on your bulls?
Yeah.
Because why would you want to take a chance?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Even if your bull tested good last year, doesn't mean he's going to test good this year. Come out and do that, and then now we have a VCPR set. If you want a prescription for LA 300 or whatever, I can write you that. If you need Arimycin in your,
Yeah.
in stress feed, I can write you, VFD for that. Why
Yeah.
don't you use me some more? Here's the thing. If producers would utilize veterinarians the way they ought to, you would not have a shortage.
Yeah, I agree.
There would be no shortage.
And I think what you're saying hits on something. If we're used, we've talked about how vets can be very creative people, and we want to be used. So if we are used, then that's why we will be there. But I love how you phrase that question. We're not asking the right question, and I think vets always want to fix the problem, but sometimes we need other help to do it, either the community or the cattle producer saying, hey, this is what we're looking, here's how we will help you get there. We can't fix everything just by changing ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's not always
the community has to support that young person, particularly now that they have, these significant debt loads, and
yeah,
it's just too attractive when you're burdened with debt. It's too attractive to make a plan and go do the 6-figure job with $50,000 sign-on bonus.
Yeah.
Than to make, 70 or 80,000 bucks in rural America, and then nobody really call you and nobody utilize you, except for ER work.
Yeah.
And that's not gonna, that's nobody, even if you were good at ER work, it just sucks the life out of your soul.
It's
draining.
draining.
Be a large animal vet, and that's all they call you for.
Yeah. Yeah. And you never know what happens to the cases because you never see them again.
Right.
So these are some things going on in veterinary medicine across the country, but specifically here in Kentucky is what Dr. Prater and I have been talking about. We ask that you contact your state representative and tell them we don't want a vet school in Kentucky. What we want is for our clients to have relationships with us so that we can treat their animals and help them manage their farms and be fairly paid for it. Instead of getting a new vet school and throwing more vets into the problems we have now, let's work on making a good relationship between vet and client. I'm Dr. Nathan. Thanks for listening. I hope our discussions are valuable to you and aid in giving perspective. If you want to contact us, please reach out to theveterinarypodcast@gmail.com. You can find a complete list of the podcast episodes on SoundCloud. If you find this information helpful and want more content, please join our Patreon, patreon.com/theveterinarypodcast. And don't forget to follow our Facebook page, facebook.com/theveterinarypodcast. As always, thanks for listening, and I hope this information is helpful to you. If you do find it helpful, please like it, share it, so other people may find it helpful as well.